Welcome back to Travel Again Insights, a weekly look at what matters most to our amazing industry. Ed, good to see you again, as always.
Good to see you as well, Mike. Another busy week for travel. Why don't we jump right into it? So, New York has lifted quarantine requirements for domestic travel. Tell us why this is important. Is this a milestone for us, or what does this mean?
I think it's a minor milestone. I think mainly because, as we know, it was largely an honor system. I think that, people were, some were taking it, more seriously, I'd say, than others in terms of, basically adhering to the quarantine requirement. But it is a positive step in terms of, and if you look at the reasons why, it's because of the vaccination rates and looking at the infection rates and saying, okay, we can start to relax some of these restrictions, but, with the big footnote, asterisk, et cetera, saying, but we need to still be vigilant, responsible, doing the right things to protect not only, ourselves, but everyone else. And I keep going back to the same, kind of message, which is you get vaccinated to protect yourself, you follow the procedures to protect everybody else, and both are equally important. And and hopefully it will be taken in that fashion, right? But we also know, and we'll talk about this with some of the other articles and news from this week. But use of quarantines have really a limited impact and/or really no impact after that initial period. They're important in the early stages of a kind of a pandemic or a outbreak, because until you understand basically what you're dealing with, medically, what you're dealing with in terms of, the infection rates, what type of virus, et cetera, the initial close everything down, basically to have a semblance of control while you're sorting through that, those first days, first part of everything is critical. But it has a quickly diminishing role. And what we're seeing in a lot of the challenges we have across the travel industry is that these quarantine requirements and restrictions, travel restrictions, have been just left in place. And we're in this binary mode where it's either travel or no travel. And there's no degrees in between of stages where we can look at how do we ramp up or ramp down requirements and restrictions. So and it's a theme throughout, certainly the rest of the articles we're going to talk about.
Okay, thank you, Mike. A blunt force tool, but we think we can do better. Next article up today is airline travel groups are urging the White House to develop COVID passports. So talking about more nuanced tools, tell us about what this means and were we involved?
Yeah, so this one's critical because we need a way to verify our vaccines, our tests, and not just now, but forever, right? This is a tool, a capability. This isn't about whether you're required to have a vaccine. This isn't about having vaccines mandatory. This isn't about whether testing is required in this instance versus another. This is purely about the verification step that's needed. And we need this, we need some guidelines set. We need to do this as quickly as possible. This is a key part of the Travel Again kind of platform that we put in place and our recommendations back in December. This has to be acted on. We need this not only here, but we need it globally, and we need those standards set, because if we end up having 1,000 different platforms and tools built, and there's no standardization and no practices in place for how those are going to be accepted, we're not going to make the progress we hope in terms of recovery. We need this. This is a critical underpinning of the whole system that we need to create, and it's not only important for us, but for virtually any form of international travel. It's going to be absolutely critical. So this is one we need attention to. And so, hats off to those involved and to A4A and Sharon Pinkerton for, making the case on ABC. And we need to do more of this. So, big issue, really important to us.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. The next article is about here in the U.S. Book travel as soon as possible. Americans are flying again, and soon it could be hard to find cheap airfare. In fact, earlier today, we were talking about $31 fares here domestically. What is this trend, and what does it mean for travel again, Mike?
Well, it's really a lot of mixed messages here, and this is tough because on one hand, understandably, airlines are looking, to get people traveling who can travel and want to travel, and are, incenting people to do it with low airfares, understandable, and the right thing to do to help, get people back. And as planes are filling up, that's great too. But we're still in this environment where the CDC is still in this binary don't travel mode. We went from travel wherever, whenever a year ago to don't travel for the last year. And the problem is they're not making any modification in their advice and their guidance to people. So people basically are taking it upon themselves to figure out whether they should be, when they should be, how they should. And that's not where we need to be. When people are getting vaccinated, we need to give advice to those people who are who want to travel, who are vaccinated now, differently than just, it's not one community. We've got a vaccinated group now. We've got a group is willing to be tested and also is vaccinated. We need to have clear guidance on what it means. And it goes back to that, what we were talking about a little earlier, which is, you get vaccinated to protect yourself, but you also need to follow the procedures to protect others. And we need to have clear guidance on what that means as it translates to travel, because the travel environments, meaning on an airplane, in an airport, in a hotel room, are safe. But so people do need to and want to get away and want to go visit relatives, but you can't. You need to have guidance and give that to the people who are now in a position to travel again. And it just isn't happening yet. It's frustrating because it does mean then that we probably are taking on additional risk that we don't need as a travel system because we're not giving that advice clearly to people. So, an area of opportunity for sure.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Our last article of the day is basically the opposite. The Canada-U.S. border has been shut down for a year, and as far as anyone could tell, there's absolutely no plan to reopen it, none that has been articulated. So what does this mean, and when will there be a plan? Well,
and that's just it. And this is another area of opportunity. We look to, the Canadian border clearly have to have not just a binary system of open or closed, but to have degrees of, scaled ways that we can say, at this level, now we're ready to move to this level, to the next level. And what that means in terms of each level of, of opening or reopening. It's easy, not easy, but it is easy to communicate shutting down. It's harder to communicate degrees under which you reopen it and how that happens. But when you do that well, like we pointed to the UK example of how, they were very proactive in creating clear dates and deadlines and conditions under which different stages of reopening would happen. That's what has to happen. And we need to do that on a more granular basis, even within, between each country, within the travel system. What does that mean? Under what conditions? What is it? Borders? Is it borders, traveling? Is it, physical borders at the involving, motor vehicles, et cetera? We need to have clear guidance to people, and they will largely follow it. I mean, if we give that guidance and work together on it. So a lot of work to do between the governments, but it starts by really defining those standards so that everyone can communicate using those same standards across the board.
All right, Mike, thanks for that. The good news here in the U.S., vaccinations continue to roll out, and it seems to be aggressively rolling out across the country. That's good news.
It is good news.
So I want to celebrate the good news where it is. Mike, that's all we have for this week.
That's great. Hey, and hopefully we'll be certainly in a position here in the U.S. where we'll be almost an open call for vaccination, within another month, and we can get to a place where that we've been talking about as Travel Again, that will be in that place where we can start to get solid footing to really start a true recovery, and that can't come fast enough. So yes, some really great to see more and more the vaccination rates, take, and all those efforts taking hold. So that's a very good news indeed.
All right, Mike, it's great to see you, and we will see our audience again next week.
Yes, we will. Take care, Ed.